Jasmine Crockett shreds Trump's ICE lies in a viral takedown that's lighting up Congress. What started as a shady attempt to criminalize a simple oversight visit turned into one of the most powerful moments on the House floor this year. You won't believe who she calls out and how hard it lands. Let's go.
And somehow, during the later hours of last night, we saw that while the mayor had been unlawfully charged, those charges ended up being dropped. The mayor of the largest city in the state of New Jersey was charged with criminal trespass. Now, we have video footage, and I'm not gonna play it, but we have video footage of literally them opening the gate and then asking him to leave, and then he left. Therefore, there is no criminal trespass, but the reason that I bring it up is because this entire situation could have been avoided if people just would know their jobs and actually do their jobs. Because the entire chaos that ensued, it ensued because of the unlawful detainment and arrest of the mayor in the first place. But let me get to my actual remarks. The Republicans have called today's hearing for one purpose: to help an administration that's already rooted in lawlessness and corruption execute their dangerous assault on American democracy. So in today's hearing, you'll hear them admonish their own congressional colleagues and excuse the behavior of the out-of-control, corrupt Trump administration.
Let's be honest, only Trump's America could arrest a mayor for walking through an open gate and then leaving when asked. And somehow, the people who did that think they're the ones protecting law and order. The only crime here, someone clearly failed basic job 101, and now they're trying to clean up the mess with MAGA tape and fake hearings. Jasmine Crockett isn't having it. She's not just calling this out. She's about to expose everything they're trying to hide, because right here in the heart of Congress, she's just getting started, and she's going to destroy them with nothing but facts and fire.
They're going to try to convince you that they're here to protect law and order and the rule of law. But they won't mention how the Trump administration is openly defying many of the 162 court rulings that have paused his illegal executive orders. They won't talk about how the president has called for the impeachment of judges who rule against him, or how they're allowing ICE agents to raid churches and elementary schools. They won't talk about how they're allowing Trump to purge the Department of Justice of employees who helped investigate the January 6th insurrectionists. They won't talk about how this administration is preparing to give $5 million to the family of Ashley Babbitt, who participated in said insurrection, because they don't actually care about law and order and the rule of law. They're here today for one reason: to forfeit their constitutional oversight responsibilities. But since I decided to bring up January 6th, let me run a tape to remind y'all of the difference of congressional oversight versus criminals.
We're here conducting an oversight visit, which we have the power to do as congressional members.
Ah yes, law and order. Unless it's Trump breaking the law, then it's just called a leadership decision. They'll scream about crime all day, but quietly support ICE raiding schools and churches and handing $5 million to someone who stormed the Capitol. They want you to forget the 162 court rulings Trump ignored. Forget the judges he threatened, forget the investigators he fired, forget the chaos and corruption that never stops. This isn't about protecting democracy. It's about protecting one man from the consequences of his own failures, and anyone who gets in his way, intimidated, threatened, or removed. But Jasmine, she's not forgetting a thing. She's not backing down. And in just a second, she's about to drop some truth bombs, loud and clear, right in their faces.
It's interesting that one set of behavior somehow is going to get a family rich overnight. And the other folk that were there in that video, the members of Congress, well, they're saying arrest them. Let me remind you that those January 6ers have been pardoned. Let me remind you that yet another January 6er was just arrested a few days ago for committing what? Another crime. So if we're gonna talk about us keeping our streets safe, let's be real about who's causing crimes, who actually went through what we call due process, because no one denied the January 6th insurrectionists of their due process. They went to court, they either pled guilty or were found guilty, and they were sent to prison, and half of them, actually all of them, if their sentences said so, should still be in prison. because we as Americans would be safer. We won't get into the fact that another one was already in trouble because they had already killed somebody.
Jasmine is doing what none of them want, telling the truth. She's laying it all out. The insurrectionists, they got pardons, MAGA merch deals, and now even sympathy cash. Meanwhile, elected officials doing legal oversight are getting threats of arrest. That's not law and order. That's a bad parody of it, and the GOP knows it. That's why they're trying to drown her out, because facts are their kryptonite. Jasmine Crockett is walking into their hearing, flipping their script, and setting the record on fire. And buckle up, because she's far from over.
Right now, our Republican colleagues want to forfeit their constitutional oversight responsibilities. Let's talk about what's actually happening. In March, we learned that the Trump administration was dismantling the Department of Homeland Security's Office of Civil Rights and Civil Liberties and terminating staff at the Office of the Citizenship and Immigration Services Ombudsman. And in the Office of Immigration Detention Ombudsman, because they argue, quote, these offices have obstructed immigration enforcement and, quote, undermined DHS's mission. The Office of Civil Rights and Civil Liberties investigates public complaints about possible violations of civil rights and civil liberties in DHS activities, including immigration enforcement and discrimination. And in the Immigration Detention Ombudsman's it is their primary responsibility to conduct oversight on conditions at immigration detention centers. So why would the Trump administration want to dismantle offices tasked with conducting oversight of immigration enforcement and detention facilities? The simple answer is, without them, there will be no internal oversight offices to assess the legality of the Trump administration's policies on immigration enforcement.
This right here, Jasmine just body slammed the Trump administration with facts, logic, and receipts. They didn't just weaken immigration policy, they went for the one thing standing in the way of total abuse: oversight. They shut down the watchdogs, the complaint investigators, the civil rights departments, all of them. Why? Because if no one's watching, they can do whatever they want. This wasn't just policy. This was a kind of sabotage in a suit and tie. Rip out the brakes, shut off the cameras, then hit the gas. And Jasmine, she's not done, because now she's about to expose the results of all that chaos.
So what have the results been? Since Trump took office on January 20th, 9 detainees have died in ICE custody. In fact, in Trump's first month in office, more detainees died in ICE custody than at any time since fiscal year 2020. Congressional Democrats have engaged in oversight activities of immigration facilities across the country, from Florida, where a 44-year-old Haitian woman died in ICE custody, to Newark, New Jersey, where 3 of our Democratic colleagues visited an immigration detention facility to ensure the humane treatment of detainees. This wasn't about going in and breaking nobody out, y'all, especially when there were cameras rolling everywhere. That's not what they were there to do. Now, in a breathtaking act of executive obstruction of congressional oversight and the unprecedented weaponization of the Department of Justice, we have an interim U.S. attorney for New Jersey who for years has argued in court that Donald Trump is above the law.
Yes, that was hard. Jasmine isn't throwing accusations. She's laying down facts. No one was breaking anybody out, she said. They came to check on basic human conditions, and still, somehow, that's what caused a political firestorm. And while she's quoting real cases and real losses, people inside ICE custody, Trump's circle is moving to block even the most basic questions. It's not about drama, it's about oversight. Jasmine Crockett is saying what so many won't. When institutions are pushed into silence, people suffer. And that interim attorney who believes Trump is above the law, yeah, Jasmine's not letting that slide either. This is bold, this is on the record, and yes, this is still building.
She has announced criminal charges against Congresswoman McIver for, quote, impeding and interfering with law enforcement. However, our power as members of Congress to conduct oversight is found in the Constitution and federal law. In fact, federal law explicitly prohibits DHS from, quote, preventing a member of Congress from entering for the purpose of conducting oversight any facility operated by or for the Department of Homeland Security used to detain or otherwise house aliens, or to make any temporary modification at any such facility that in any way alters what is observed by a visiting member of Congress. It is against the law. Full stop.
When Jasmine Crockett says full stop, she means it. She's not just citing talking points. She's quoting federal law, chapter and verse, and calling out the fact that trying to criminalize oversight is not just wrong, it's illegal. And the fact that anyone in Trump's circle thinks this won't be challenged, well, she's about to make it very clear why they're dead wrong, because she's not finished, not even close.
Separately, the court has consistently held that the speech and debate clause of the Constitution protects individual members from prosecution for legislative acts, including, quote, fact-finding, field investigations, and information gathering. The court has consistently held that the primary purpose of the speech and debate clause is to, quote, prevent intimidation by the executive and before a possibly hostile judiciary. So let's call this for what it is. This administration is criminalizing legislative oversight, and the Republicans on this committee are helping them to do so. Rep. McIver didn't engage in interference. It was ICE that engaged in interference while members of Congress attempted to conduct legitimate oversight of ICE facilities. Everyone, whether you are American or not, should be deeply disturbed and worried about Trump's abuse of power.
This isn't some dramatic accusation. This is a constitutional warning siren. The speech and debate clause exists for a reason, to keep checks and balances intact, not to be shredded every time Trump gets nervous about oversight. And Jasmine's absolutely right. It's not Congress doing the interfering. It's ICE, under Trump's direction, blocking elected officials from doing their legal duty. If Republicans on this committee don't care about that, what exactly do they care about? Because Jasmine is laying it out crystal clear, and trust me, she's about to take it even further.
They're attacking universities for teaching things they don't like. They're attacking law firms for representing clients that they don't like. This hearing and these charges are an attempt at political intimidation. The three members in Newark were exercising their constitutional duties to check an out-of-control executive branch. This entire situation happened because of the unjust arrest of Mayor Baraka. And not only were the members invited in and given a tour of the facility, this was after they so-called had broken the law. Now, I don't know about y'all, but where I'm from in Texas, I can tell you that I'm not used to having law enforcement see a crime happen right in front of their faces and then say, never mind, we'll just go about our business. In fact, why don't you go ahead and come on in? Come on in, we gonna do this tour because, oops, we did make a mistake because technically by law, we are supposed to allow you in. And wait a minute, while you're here, do y'all want something to drink? We got refreshments for you as well. And then after you conduct this oversight, and you actually gave a clean bill of health because you were never there to disrupt, you were always there to do your duty. They came out and they said, everything looks good. And then it wasn't at that moment that they decided to arrest members. It wasn't the next day. In fact, even as I sit here today, no member has been arrested.
This whole oversight is illegal now storyline, Jasmine just tore it apart. They rolled out the welcome mat, gave a tour, offered drinks, and smiled for the cameras. And then, days later, suddenly decided to call it criminal. This isn't law enforcement, this is PR stunts with handcuffs. And Crockett's from Texas. She's seen what real accountability looks like. And this was none of that. And remember, no one's been arrested because they know it's nonsense. But don't relax yet. Jasmine's not letting up because next, she's going to explain just how deep this cover-up goes.
Now you tell me how many times you can see the robber go in the bank, steal the money, and then they say, well, never mind, we'll think about this later. That is what you call politicizing. And that is what we are here to talk about is wrong. We got a few other issues with ICE right now, so I'm gonna get to them in a second. The DOJ, as I said already, has already dropped the charges against the mayor. Look, they're coming after everyone who uses their constitutional rights and duties to speak truth to power. The press, the courts, and now members of Congress. And to be perfectly honest, I had my team do the research. Under no other president, Democrat or Republican, can we find an incident where they have tried to arrest members of Congress. This is absolutely absurd that they were out there simply doing their duty. We have never seen ICE act in this way. In fact, it's not less oversight that we need right now, it's more.
Jasmine Crockett nailed it. What she's describing isn't just drama, it's unprecedented. Under no other president, Democrat or Republican, has this kind of threat been made against members of Congress simply doing their job. This isn't about disruption, it's about oversight. It's about elected officials being targeted after the fact, after they were welcomed in, shown around, even offered drinks. And now suddenly, it's a crime? No. What we're seeing here is political theater disguised as law enforcement, and it's raising serious concerns. Crockett's not exaggerating when she says this is about power, who gets to ask questions and who gets punished for it. And Trump's reaction proves one thing: oversight works, because otherwise they wouldn't be trying this hard to shut it down. And Jasmine, she's not backing off, she's just getting started. I think we will hear a lot from her in the future. Here you can find the next video. Click on it. Until then, see you soon.